You know, the weather here lately doesn't exactly scream garden planning, but I'm starting to get the seed catalogs and I'm just getting that itch to get my hands back in the earth and start digging stuff up and rooting around and watching things grow. I don't have time for a garden, but I'm planning one anyway. Sound familiar? I'm sure many of you feel the same way. You think about gardens, you're like, oh, that sounds nice. It's something I'd like to do. Must be nice. Maybe I'll do that when I retire. For those of you who feel a calling to grow something, you really want to get your hands in the soil, I don't think that a shortage of time should necessarily prevent you from doing so if it's really calling you. And so that's who today's video is for. I'm going to share with you how I'm in a similar circumstance and how I'm going about it because it's something that I definitely still want to include in my life. Welcome to MrsCrunchy, where we discuss natural living in a modern world. I think it's a lot more difficult for people to have a garden these days because it used to be that one person worked inside the home. It was usually the mother of the household, and they were simply around because it does require time and effort to have a garden. However, these days it's not uncommon for both partners to be working outside of the home. And with life just seemingly getting busier and busier, I think a lot of people feel that they just don't have the time to have one. And although I work largely inside the home now, I and my family have some life situations that are going to require some time and energy, and it will be away from the garden this year. And that is why I wanted to share this video, because I think a lot of us are in the same boat. So let's talk about how we can still plan a garden. In my case, it's going to first involve a process of really ruthlessly narrowing down what I truly want to grow, what my family really enjoys eating, and leaving everything else for another time of life. Now, if any of you can relate to this or have any ideas to share for having gardens during busy seasons of life, feel free to leave that below in the comments because I think we'd all benefit from it. So how am I going to do this? Well, like I mentioned, really just narrowing it down to a few things. So for example, one of them I know this year are going to be tomatoes, because my son, I watched him last year and he would just pluck a tomato every single day, and just watching him eat it and enjoy it, and just, you know, teaching him delayed gratification as much as you can for a toddler anyway, about waiting for them to ripen. Just so many beautiful lessons, and just it was an incredibly rewarding thing to watch him do that every day. So that's something that I definitely don't want to miss out this year. So, you know, what's something that is important to you? Maybe you have a similar situation. There's something that a family member truly enjoys or that you really enjoy. So I would first create a list of the most important things to you. And if you still find that you have too many things on this list, because I would be guilty of that, an idea for narrowing it down even further is that you could think of things that are really expensive to buy at the store and grow those first. So I've brought this up before, you know, something cheap like onions, for example, or potatoes, they might be something that you want to skip. Even though everything has gone up in price lately, it feels like they still tend to be cheaper than some of the other things that you could grow. Focusing on low maintenance crops is going to be really helpful as well, and it's another way that you can sort of drill down. But you don't want to grow things that require a lot of care. Even if it's watering is a big issue for you, then you don't want something where you're going to have to go out and water frequently. So go with what's easiest, what works well in your climate. That's going to be helpful. Many of you have seen some of my earlier videos. You know that I'm a fan of permaculture, which I won't really get into today because I don't want to veer too much off the topic. But in permaculture, they have something called Zone 1, which is basically the areas that you frequent on a daily basis. It's very close to you. You have a lot of access to them. And so in my Zone 1, that's something where the easier I make it for myself, I know that it'll be easier for me to maintain and look after things. So for example, I'm not going to put a crop of something super far away from my house because the likelihood of me going out there is very slim. However, if I did something like container gardening, which is a wonderful thing because if you rent, you can do container gardening too, is put some containers on, like my back deck gets a lot of southern exposure. So anywhere where you know, along pathways that you walk to and from the car, let's say every day, you could put some containers there. So like I said, just try to make it as easy on yourself as possible. Another thing that's so easy to grow and so good for you that people tend to overlook are microgreens and sprouts. These can be done inside. You don't need any land in order to grow them, and again, try to keep them close to you. I put mine on the windowsill in the kitchen, so it's easy for me to just rinse them off, give them a shake, and dump out the water every day or so. They're packed with nutrition, you get a lot of bang for your buck, and they're not that hard to grow at all. As I touched upon earlier, I'm also going to include crops where I don't have to water them frequently. So in order to do that, I always mulch with wood chips and layers of newspaper in order to cut down on the weeding that I have to do, one, and two, the amount that I have to water. Also, I've talked about it in the past. I don't know if I will get around to it this year, but setting up automated systems, so like drip irrigation or something like that, just to make the process automatic, would be really helpful. So that's something that I might do this year as well. Now that I know what I want to grow, the next step was making sure that I actually had all the seeds to grow these things, and if not, I needed to order them. And I also wanted to check to make sure that the seeds that I did have were still good. So I hope today's video gave you guys some ideas for what to do if you don't have time for a garden, but you still want one. I do think that you can grow at least one or two things. I think most people have that in their capacity. I really do. So if you feel like doing it, go for it. And hopefully we can cheer each other on this growing season. And I look forward to making some more gardening videos for you throughout the year. As always, thank you so much for watching and for your comments, and I will see you all again soon.